Down for the Count with Brandon Medina and Dan Cialana.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, ESPN San Antonio, but more importantly, Brandon Big Papi Medina and Dan Cialana bring to you the best show. Are you doing this with me, Dan? Are you going to do this with me here?
Well, I'm a little concerned. You mentioned a name I don't think you were supposed to mention. But okay.
Well,
I don't want to interrupt
knows?
your flow there.
All right, well, are you going to do it with me, Dan?
I'll do it with you.
Here we go.
Me
Ready?
and you together, all right.
The best show in the world. This is Brandon Big Papi Medina. That is Dan Cialana. We are here talking wrestling.
We are?
Wrestling. The Southern boys over here drinking, having a good time with you on a wonderful, humid Thursday night here in San Antonio, Texas. But we are having a good time. Out
Brandon,
the gate,
real
Dan,
quick,
let me hear it. Go.
Just there's a backdrop here, so you can't see the entire room.
For those of us watching, yes.
Yeah, for those for just listening, I have a backdrop here. You can't see the entire room, which means that
the Cialana Mansion. You can't see
elephant,
the Cialana Mansion.
The elephant somewhere in this room you can't see. So I don't know how much. We didn't talk about this before the show about how much of the elephant we're going to talk about, or if we're going to talk about the elephant at all. The title of this show that we put out there is called "The Last Down for the Count." So I'm going to defer to you because you probably have better sense about these kind of things these days than I do. How much of the elephant do you want to talk about?
I think the elephant deserves to be talked about, especially because just like wonderful wrestling, sometimes it's always good to go back to those independent promotions, right, Dan Cialana?
Sometimes
you need a break.
Sometimes you think you're doing a good job, you think you got a good relationship, and all of a sudden they decide to tell you that good luck on your future endeavors.
Right. So,
or in our case, get out of the building. You have no show tonight. Never come back.
Right. One of the two.
One of those happen.
But without doing a full CM Punk pipe bomb, Down for the Counts will slow down. Dan for the count over there, Mr. Dan Cialana will not be slowing down. I know that. But for now, we're going to keep it not so edgy. We're going to keep it classy, keep it simple. But so everybody knows, we will be moving forward independently. We thank ESPN San Antonio for the great years that we were able to do stuff with them there. I do think we'll be able to continue doing some more interviews and stuff like that whenever we can. I know Dan and I will not be missing any local promotions or big wrestling events coming near and to San Antonio, Texas. So all of Texas will definitely be planning. I know you and I want to be at WrestleMania, of course, this next April.
Yeah.
So as said, I don't want to go too far into it because this is a big show, and obviously we have the CM Punk stuff to talk about, the Daniel Bryan tease to talk about, the Tribal Chief, Brock Lesnar, so much. I don't want to spend time being petty. So thank you to ESPN and all the great people over there, the not so great people, whatever the case. We thank you for the time. We thank you
for those who are helpful, thank you. For those who weren't, fuck you.
Yes.
And that's I'm speaking for myself. And I'll just say this: we were supposed to do a live show last week, and one of the people in that building who doesn't care about this show, who's never listened to a minute of this show, I think, decided the last minute, literally like 10 minutes before the show, that they didn't want the show to be live on the air. We were supposed to come back for the first time live in several months, and they told us to leave the building. And again, we won't go too far into this, but I have to say this sincerely, and I don't say this lightly. This decision was made specifically as to offend me. It was personal against me. There was no functional reason that they had to cancel it at that time. People who made a decision, it was directly directed at me, and we had people coming in. We had wrestlers coming in to be guests. Some people you've heard of, some new people, and they did it. It wasn't anybody we've mentioned on the show before, and it wasn't anybody.
And it wasn't anybody who's been supportive in the past and have been
Brandon cut out
great people. I'm sorry, but yeah, no, I mean,
and I want to thank the people who are supportive, but I don't want to get them in trouble. But you know who you are. So thank you, everyone who's ever supported this show in that building, and anyone who hasn't, go fuck yourself.
Yes, and thank you to all of the listeners who have been with us for a while. We hope you continue listening. You are clearly here either on the channel or through our podcast. Please continue to feel free to check that out. There will be a break in time while we figure out what's the move moving forward for the show, but I do not think the show will be leaving off on a bad note. I don't want to leave on a sour note either.
Absolutely. This is a great week of wrestling, mixed emotions, but we had to do at least one last show, at least for now,
right,
to talk about this great week we've had in wrestling, both in AEW and WWE. Brandon, I have to admit, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong about CM Punk. A few weeks ago on the show, I said that CM Punk is like Jesus. We love him, but we'll never see him again. And I was absolutely wrong. Good line.
I will say,
I was wrong.
Because of that, if you're watching on YouTube or on our Facebook page at DFTC Podcast, DFTC Wrestling Podcast for Facebook, and on Twitter at DFTC Podcast, you'll see Dan Cialana has been wrong quite a bit. Okay,
I've been wrong plenty of times.
At least not wrong in his views of things. I mean, sometimes it can get a little dicey, but his very much wrong sometimes on when wrestlers come back and if wrestlers come back.
I said Edge would never come back.
And that's why I want to say this. So CM Punk, and you mentioned Edge, which was the biggest one, the most notable one before CM Punk, and I happen to have the Rated R Superstar shirt on. So I think Dan Cialana, I would love to, just talk about the fact that you are a legitimate mark.
Wrong.
I mean, all your life.
I'm a mark.
You buy into it, and I love it.
It's still real to me, damn it.
It's still real to me, damn it. And you gotta love it, and that's why we love the pro wrestling sport. I mean, it's just you buy into it. Nobody thinks CM Punk's coming back. 7 years since his last match, constant CM Punk chants, and they haven't stopped, Dan. I mean, they're only going to continue now. I think both of you and I both thought, are they going to stop? Is this going to be it? He's finally here. Not anymore. But yesterday we did get some yes chants, and
we did.
We were told to be patient and wait a while because that's someone else's gimmick. What did
that
you
was
think
great.
about
So
this?
it was last night on Dynamite. It was CM Punk's first time on Dynamite.
Yep.
Second time on AEW TV.
Shout out to AJ Lee too. He shouted out his girl.
Shout out AJ Lee, and CM Punk responded to the yes chants in the audience, and then he smiles and says, "Hey, that's somebody else's gimmick. You're gonna have to be a little more patient for that." And I don't think he's just trolling. I think AEW seems to have found a good idea in terms of how to promote someone without promoting someone's debut, and it's kind of fun to let the fans do the promotion for you. And it's not out of the possibilities that Bryan Danielson will be at AEW very soon, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a great time. It's a great, I just think Daniel Bryan is so talented, and I think he has a heart for WWE, and obviously that's where he met his wife, and he's got a lot of great fans there. But I just think AEW, Daniel Bryan would fit in much better there in terms of his style, his goals. I really hope Daniel Bryan ends up in AEW, and that's someone else who we never thought would come back. Think about this. A few years ago, if someone would have said, CM Punk's back, Edge is back, Daniel Bryan may be coming back and going to the rival company. I mean, this is such a great time to be a wrestling fan.
It really is. I mean, I don't remember another time like this, unless, obviously everybody wants to bring up the Attitude Era. I think this is better. I think this is a better time. Maybe not as many superstars, but as far as storylines, as far as excitement goes, and also in the 90s, Dan, if there was social media and there was the internet, I don't think wrestling is what it was in the 90s. I don't think if we had the other options and other streaming services and stuff as it was in the 90s, there's no way WWE is pulling the numbers and WCW is pulling the numbers they were. So I think this might be the strongest time to be a wrestling fan, simply for the fact that they're still pulling in viewership against the NBA, against, NFL granted preseason, against, MLB, against major television shows, Netflix series, social media, work, life. It's just WWE just had their highest grossing pay-per-view of all time. That's what they released, Dan. Did you see that for SummerSlam?
I didn't see that, but congratulations, and I believe it.
That is outrageous. So it is definitely a very, very important time to be a wrestling fan. And it all starts as unfortunate or fortunate as it might be, listen, it starts with Roman Reigns. I mean, we've seen the guy be pushed for years, Dan. We saw 4 or 5 WrestleMania straight where he's just headlining. I mean, and it made people like you over the years be very envious and have some sort of hatred towards
People like me.
Roman Reigns. Both of us.
I didn't hate Roman Reigns.
Yes, you did. At one
No.
point, yes, you did.
I've
Dan.
always
All
loved
of us
Roman
have.
Reigns.
No, that's not true. That is not
Well,
true.
you get kind of sick after what. There was times where it's like, okay, here he comes out again. I didn't like it when they were trying so hard to make Roman Reigns a hero when the crowd did not see him as a hero.
Yeah.
It took years and years for McMahon to finally realize, okay, they're going to boo this guy, so let's lean into it. Let's not try to fight it. Let's lean into it. And I think it works.
I think it did too. I think it definitely works. I think when you look at things for not only Roman Reigns, but many others. I mean, you look at Daniel Bryan, who's now moving on, but AJ Styles, for him to be as important as he is to the wrestling community after years and years of putting in work. And then you look at, you have the names of the 90s still there. You have the Jeff Hardys on WWE. You have Matt Hardy at AEW. You have Big Show doing whatever it is he's doing at AEW. But I think the young crop of wrestlers that we have today are just insanely talented. I mean, I am out of the young generation, Dan. What 3 do you think are the next big things? And I think Darby Allin has to be at that list.
Yeah, definitely a Darby Allin. I think CM Punk wouldn't want to work with Darby Allin unless CM Punk thought that Darby Allin had a big future.
Right. So let's say Down for the
Darby.
Count takes some time, right? When we come back, whether it's in 2 weeks, whether it's 2 months, or
2 months,
whatever it
2
is,
years.
whatever it is, when we come back and we start talking more wrestling, who do we think for the next decade are some wrestlers to notably be looking at and watching, preparing for their absolute breakout year? Darby Allin's in both of ours, for sure.
I say definitely look at MJF because I think, we saw last night on Dynamite that Jericho put the stipulation in saying that if MJF defeats me at the pay-per-view, then Jericho is going to be a full-time commentator. And there's been rumors that he's going to kind of slow down and do that anyway. So maybe Jericho with CM Punk coming in, maybe Jericho is kind of like, okay, I've kind of come full circle here. This company doesn't need me. Jericho knows that him going to AEW when AEW started was huge for the company. Put them on the, I don't want to say put them on the map, but it definitely was a big boon for them.
Yeah.
Maybe Jericho realizes we got CM Punk coming in. We got a lot of new guys. I've helped a lot of new guys get over. Maybe it's time for me to kind of go, right off into the sunset. So I think he definitely sees a lot in MJF behind the scenes. And I think MJF is just going to continue. I think MJF's going to beat Jericho at the pay-per-view. I think Jericho's going to semi-retire and go to commentary. So MJF is definitely one person to look for. That's 2, right? You wanted one more?
I'll give you the last one.
I don't want to be quizzed.
I agree
Give me
with
the
both
last
of them.
one.
MJF is the best heel since young Randy Orton I've ever seen. I mean, absolutely killer on the mic. Can hang with the best of them. In ring, he needs some work, Dan. In ring, he could be polished a little bit. Hey, come on now. But when you look at,
you want him to polish himself a little more.
I'm just saying, when you look at his in-ring work, it could be better. But on the mic, I don't think there's much to work on. I mean, the guy's incredible. However, for a third option, when it comes to women's wrestling, those 2 are both in AEW, Darby Allin and MJF. When it comes to the women's, I think Rhea Ripley's going to be on top of the world for years to come.
I think so, and I would have said that about Bianca Belair, but I'm not sure what's going on there. I thought that was very upsetting at SummerSlam, the way that she
Both of
lost
them,
to
yeah, for
returning
sure.
Becky. I thought it was just one thing I've always complained about the old Attitude Era was that there was too much of the competing companies actually like kind of reacting to each other instead of just doing their own thing, instead of just kind of going, okay, what story do you want? We got to react to what they're doing. I would assume that WWE did not want Becky to come back in the way she came back, but I think with CM Punk making his debut at Rampage at AEW, I think WWE's like, man, we need to just absolutely blow the roof off the place at SummerSlam. So they brought Becky in, and it didn't seem right. It's just like, okay, she's here, and we're glad she's back, but then she kind of cheap shots Bianca Belair, defeats her in like 30 seconds, and even the crowd was kind of like, okay, I don't know how to feel about this. It just didn't seem very well thought out. It seemed kind of just thrown out there. And I thought Bianca deserved better. I really thought Bianca Belair was going to hold on to that title for like a year or more. It was very disappointing to see her lose like that, especially in a situation where, God, it might have just been a decision that was made that day. And maybe they'll fix it on SmackDown tomorrow night. Maybe Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce backstage will say, hey, that title match was not sanctioned by us, so they'll use storyline to kind of like reverse it, or maybe do another rematch or declare the title vacant or something. But I just thought they did Bianca dirty, and I know a lot of people did. And at the risk of sounding woke, I know a lot of people on Twitter remarked that the imagery of a white woman coming back and returning and just immediately taking the place of a black woman who has been doing the work behind the scene while she was gone was unfortunate imagery. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely unfortunate the way it went down. I think if I was at SummerSlam, the thought of a Bianca Belair Ronda Rousey matchup sounds absolutely incredible. I mean, that sounds like something I could get behind 10 times out of 10, no problem. However, a squash match is not what we want to see. That's not what we wanted to see. Where, first off, I don't know how much great shape Becky's in. She looked very skinny.
Yeah.
But Becky Lynch did like a rock bottom. Like there was no Becky finishing move to be excited for. It was an elbow to the face after a handshake, a rock bottom, 1, 2, 3. Becky Lynch is champion.
It didn't make any sense, especially since Becky, she primed the crowd like we're gonna get a kick-ass match. She said, "Let's blow the roof off this place." So, and I'm sure the writers backstage would say, "Well, that was her being a heel. She was doing a cheap shot." But I think I know where you're going with it. And I think I agree with it in terms of it almost looked like we're not sure if she can go, so let's just do a quick match.
Yes.
And are we supposed to believe that Bianca Belair would lose to someone who's been off of pregnancy leave?
The EST of WWE loses to a very much new mom.
It was BS. And I think what they should have done, they could, obviously for whatever reason, Sasha Banks couldn't be there. They could have had the match with Carmella, maybe a short match. Bianca beats Carmella, and while Bianca is celebrating, Becky comes out and challenges her for the next pay-per-view. That would have been perfect. I'm guessing that might have been their plan all along, but I just think they wanted that shock value. They wanted that social media, oh, let's talk about this, whether people are angry or happy or whatever. And I think it's unfortunate if WWE is making a decision, or any wrestling company is making a decision solely based on what's going to get people talking on Twitter this weekend, because it's not about just Twitter this weekend. It's about your long-term storytelling. And I thought they told a bad story in the way that Becky Lynch returned at SummerSlam.
I agree, man. It was awful booking. But what was very good booking, besides Becky Lynch returning, and they needed to do something. It was the day after CM Punk comes out. How do you answer? You answer with Becky Lynch, okay. But then we see what happens. Nobody's happy. No fans are happy. No wrestlers are happy. I'm sure Bianca looked very upset, and she was very emotional.
Yeah.
But we get to see a ponytailed, jacked up Brock Lesnar return to cheers, not boos.
Yeah.
To cheers, and it looks like he's going to be a babyface against Roman Reigns. This matchup is very, very intriguing. Not because we haven't seen it. We've seen it plenty of times. But Brock Lesnar looks rejuvenated to be back in the ring. And it's probably because he got paid very, very wealthy amount of money. And from my understanding, I looked at a report that said his contract is only for a year and a half. And it stipulates only 8 matches. I would wrestle 12 matches for a year and a half if you gave me Brock Lesnar money. But then again, I'm not Brock Lesnar built, so nobody wants to see that. But, I mean, how incredible of a deal is this for Brock Lesnar, Dan? And how excited are you as a wrestling fan, honestly?
I thought it was cool for Brock coming back. And like you said, we've seen it before. We've seen Brock versus Roman a few times. But this time it still feels fresh. Not just because Brock had the ponytail and a new look, and he was actually wearing pants and stuff, but it's a whole different dynamic now. It's Paul Heyman's old guy facing Paul Heyman's new guy. So it feels like a fresh new, it is a fresh new rivalry, but it feels like, it doesn't feel like, oh, these guys again. Yeah. There's a different dynamic. And I love, wrestling is great when it tells great stories. So I hope we find out, like, why is Brock coming back? Like, what are his motives in storyline? And how does he feel about Paul Heyman? There's all these unknowns. It's like, is he going to try to, does he want to win Paul Heyman back? Like win the hand of Paul Heyman back? Does he want to show Paul Heyman like, hey, you disrespected me because you went with this other guy here and I'm going to kick that guy's ass? Or I don't know. And it's fun to have these unknowns. We're going to find out. I think it's going to be a good storyline.
I'll tell you this. What I want to see, this is how I want to see it play out. At Survivor Series, I want to see Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns fight for the custody of Paul Heyman in the ladder match, just like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. That's what I want to see.
Winner takes the manager, kind of like
Winner
WrestleMania
takes
5.
The manager, yes.
The winner gets Elizabeth. That was never the stipulation, but it was always for that WrestleMania match, but it was always just kind of implied.
Since we don't know when we're coming back, can I get you doing the Macho Man saying Elizabeth like 3 times real quick?
Elizabeth, Elizabeth, I love you.
That was incredible. Wow. I mean, absolute Academy Award for Dan Cialana. But I agree with you, man. I think this is exciting stuff. It feels fresh. It made me hyped, and I did not expect to be hyped because I am the biggest Brock Lesnar hater, but Dan Cialana is the biggest Brock Lesnar apologist, so it just makes sense.
I'm not an apologist.
Makes sense.
You just make things up.
I'm not making anything up. Listen, we have you on record saying AEW is going to fail. We had that, right, a few shows ago.
Yeah.
We have you on record
out of context
being wrong about CM Punk and Edge's return in context.
Yeah.
And now we have you being an apologist for Brock Lesnar after absolutely hating him. Dan.
I'd kick me out of a building too.
I get it, Dan. But what do you think the reaction is now, Dan, with Brock Lesnar, Becky Lynch now in the fold? We have CM Punk. Daniel Bryan's kind of the last domino to fall, but there's a domino we haven't talked about on the show yet, and that is Adam Cole, baby.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think, Dan? Adam Cole, is he staying at NXT? No contract signed as of today's recording on Thursday. And today is August 26th. No contract signed. His fiance, girlfriend, wife, whatever, Britt Baker over there at AEW is tearing it up. Would you like to see Adam Cole make that jump, or is enough enough? What are you thinking, Dan?
From a wrestler's point of view, obviously I'm not a wrestler, but I'm trying to get ahead of a wrestler. I would, if I was an upcoming wrestler, I don't know why I would ever stay at WWE if I had the chance to go to AEW. There's only one reason I would ever, as a wrestler, if I was in WWE, stay in WWE, is that I would hope to someday main event WrestleMania. But to be honest, Brandon, I don't know if people I don't know if a lot of wrestlers even care.
I don't think they really care. Adam Cole, honestly, his chances are very much low on main eventing WrestleMania.
Maybe you figure like I'm never gonna headline WrestleMania, and I've seen so many of my friends get mistreated by this company.
Yeah, and Adam Cole's what?
Leave.
Again, no disrespect to any of our listeners, but Adam Cole's like what, 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", maybe? Like he's not gonna main event WrestleMania. There's no way. You're not Rey Mysterio. It's not gonna happen. Vince is not gonna put that on WrestleMania's main event.
I hope everybody leaves, and that's one thing. That's one. I don't know if I should say it. That's one thing. There's one relief of taking a pause, at least from this show, is that I know we're not going to be able to interview WWE wrestlers. I assume we won't. And it was always a little bit awkward to pretend that we like Monday Night Raw or even NXT with these because it's you want to be polite. I'm not going to ask them to bash their employers, but
yeah, of course.
I'm always want to be like, okay, blink
even
once.
though Dan jumps on and does even beforehand, but yes.
I mean, sometimes I feel. I mean, some of the people we've interviewed wrestlers from WWE. Sometimes I feel sorry for them. I'm like, are you okay? I want to be like, are you okay? Are you okay? We can help you. We can save you. But you know, why would Adam Cole stay in NXT? NXT is not even NXT anymore. The bloom is off the rose, as they say. Is that what they say?
The bloom
is off the rose.
That sounds like an old person's quote. That might be.
I am an old person.
That
I'm
might
41.
be legitimate.
But listen, like, why would
you're
you
a young
stay at
soul,
NXT?
Dan. You're a young soul.
Yeah, okay. Why would I stay at NXT if I was Adam Cole or anybody else? It's not NXT. Do you remember the glory days of NXT just a few years ago, where NXT was like this underground type brand, and you had to in order to see NXT, you either had to go to a house show if you were lucky, like at the Majestic Theater or something, or you had to be in Florida at Full Sail University, right? So it had like this underground kind of tribe feel to it. It was kind of like our little secret if you're an NXT fan. And I know I had friends, I'm sure you had friends too, where they watched NXT, but they did not watch the main product of WWE.
Yep.
And then damn it, as soon as NXT moved to USA Network, it wasn't
that
underground
feeling,
anymore.
that feeling was gone.
It just seems like it's just a different show.
Yeah.
It's just a different show, but then it's a lower show, but it's not lower, and we don't know why we have this other show, where before it was clear, like, this is a developmental show. It's not live, or we're going to record, we're going to put you on WWE Network and have a lower profile, and then we're going to do our takeover events, and the takeover is we have to just show everybody who's boss. There was times before we did this show, before we started the show in 2019, where I never ever watched the NXT show, but I never missed a takeover because the takeovers were so good.
Yep.
But now it's just like, damn it. NXT is just sort of like just another WWE show out there with NXT UK or SmackDown and
from what I
main
hear,
events. It's just one of these random content shows that isn't special anymore.
I missed Takeover. I didn't watch it, but from what I hear is that UK Championship match was a 10 out of 10. That it was incredible.
Yeah. I
haven't
did not
seen
watch it either, but I want to see that.
I gotta go check it out. But I'm excited to check it out.
But hold on, Brandon. Think about that. You and I just didn't even bother watching Takeover. I could not imagine.
Well, I was busy, but yes,
you were busy. I know you got a wife and baby and everything.
Right? Whatever. Yeah, you're right.
Gainful employment. I get it. But for me, it's like. But even a couple of years ago, I couldn't imagine missing a Takeover.
Yeah,
because those were the shows that everybody was talking about.
Well, if you missed
back
a Takeover,
in the day with Johnny Gargano versus Ciampa, like you never missed it. But now it's just kind of like,
I mean, forget that. You watched the greatest women's wrestling match of all time with Sasha Banks and Bayley too at
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, massive pops all the way through.
But are those days over? Are those days over? I think they're
here's-
over, and that's why I think Adam Cole should leave NXT, because I think NXT has peaked.
NXT is peaked. You heard it here first. Dan Cialana said it. Dan Cialana also said Velveteen Dream was going to be the next big thing, as well as Matt Riddle.
And Dana Brooke.
And Dana Brooke.
I said Dana Brooke was going to take over 2020.
But instead, coronavirus took over 2020 and 2021. So Dana Brooke, 0, Corona 2. But when you look at things as they stand, I don't think NXT is done. I think NXT being the catapult to superstardom is done. I mean, there's so many that came through NXT that we thought were going to be stars, Dan. We thought Gargano, when they were coming on the Raw, was going to be a star. Ciampa could not stay healthy. But then you look at Nakamura, wins the Royal Rumble, goes on to fight AJ Styles at WrestleMania. We're expecting Tokyo Dome 6-star match. It is not that.
Sorry,
and then you had the glorious one, Bobby Roode, who's barely clinging on to a job these days. You have Fandango and Tyler Breeze doing whatever the hell they're doing. I don't know how they're not in the cuts these days.
They think they were in the cuts.
Were they in the cuts? Maybe.
I think so.
I'm not sure.
Well, Brandon, can you think of any other sport or organization where if you're in the developmental league and your boss tells you that, hey, you're going to go to the main league, like half the people go, oh, shit. Oh, no. What's the incentive to do good if the reward for doing well is to go to the main roster, from NXT to the main roster, and have your character and your career ruined? Why would you do good? Even if you don't get promoted to NXT, I mean, even if you're at NXT and you don't have any plans of going to WWE main roster, or you don't think you're going to, you're still in the same company, and company morale is low there. Have you ever worked at a place, Brandon, where company morale was really low, where there's a lot of cuts, a lot of layoffs? It sucks. It's a crappy environment. And the ones who stay and the ones who are still there have survivor's guilt. It's just a crappy work environment. You ever been in an environment like that?
I think so, Dan. I think so. I think I can think of one from the top of my head. But
can you think of any industries that are like that?
Oh yeah, plenty. But
Me too.
I also think, Dan, there's something that comes with NXT pushes you. Maybe Dan Cialana thinks, hey, I could be the next Seth Rollins. I could be the next Roman Reigns. I could be the next Kevin Owens. I could be the next Finn Balor. I could be the next, you name it, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Becky Lynch. All of those are NXT alumni. I mean, it definitely has done its job. But unfortunately, if you're a Cowboys fan and you're a WWE fan, it is the same thing both ways.
Yep.
Until that owner lets go of some of the reins, you're not going to see success. And it's the same thing in WWE. Vince McMahon, Dan, as much as we love him, as much as the respect is there, and as much as he can be an absolute douchebag, he's keeping WWE aground, but Triple H himself is NXT, and I guarantee you, when Triple H gets full reign over NXT, that is a different show than what we're seeing today.
Now, Brandon, this may seem like a departure or an aside, but have you ever seen the show The Handmaid's Tale?
I know, of course, I'm familiar with it. I've personally never watched it though.
So I started binging it the last few weeks, and basically, like the United States gets taken over by this religious right-wing government, and they basically make all the
KTSA. Oh, never mind. No,
KTSA. Oh, I thought I was gonna have the KTSA jokes tonight. Damn. Look, I'm proud of you.
Hey now. Continue.
Hey now, yeah. KTSA. They think Handmaid's Tale's porn. Anyway, so
God, jeez.
what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? Go ahead.
Oh God. Okay, go for it.
You guys know how to find me. Anyway, okay. So they make all the women. They basically they reprogram all the women, and they make them just wear all these uniforms, and they teach them they make them they make them take on the new ways of the new Gilead country. Okay, that's what the WWE Performance Center does to wrestlers. They say, forget everything you ever knew before.
The stuff that got you, the stuff that got you a tryout. Forget all of that.
Everything that you learned, your blood, sweat, and tears, going to the indie shows, making just a little bit of money, eating the cars, talking to people, everything you've ever learned, you need to unlearn it now because we do it differently. And some people are going to be like, hey, cool, I'll do it. I don't think it's good for everybody. And just, damn. One thing that's going to be good about pausing this show is that I won't feel guilty about not watching WWE very much because obviously I wanted to watch to keep up.
Yeah.
But I don't have to anymore. I'm free.
Yeah,
I don't have to watch WWE.
free
I can actually watch
AEW
wrestling
only.
shows that actually care about me as the audience that aren't just paint by the numbers. Okay. I mean, Brandon, you know this is true. When you watch Raw or SmackDown, you can tell when they're going to go to break.
Yes.
Okay, they're going to throw the guy over there. Okay, you just know it. Like there's times in pay-per-views where they do those same moves where I literally start grabbing my phone because I'm being trained to go, okay, when this happens, when someone gets thrown out of the ring, we go to a commercial break. That's how formulaic WWE is. That's how just like controlled and sterile and predictable WWE is.
It's hard for me to even argue against it, Dan. You're right, man. You're right. It definitely is predictable. It's easy to understand what's going on, why it's going on, stuff like that. It's very easy to understand and pinpoint transitions within a wrestling match, as well as pinpoint where a storyline's going to go because they're all recycled. And I think we both need to pause for sure. And if you are a wrestling fan, we've said it for over a year now, AEW is the show you want to watch. But if you are a WWE fan and you want to stay a WWE fan, there is no other show besides SmackDown that should be getting your attention.
I think you can get away with just watching on YouTube.
Yes, SmackDown.
Hey, listen to some podcasts to get some more context.
I will say, I watched the past 2 weeks. SmackDown is a legitimately fun show. It's definitely the better of the brands. But what does that tell you when the A show in Monday Night Raw is really getting their ass kicked by SmackDown and people are loving it? So I don't know, man. I think Rampage, obviously going against SmackDown, adds a little bit of competition, but I don't think enough for it to.
Well, they don't air at the same time.
Yeah, they air after, but I'm saying competition as far as like
time wise.
Do you really want to give all that time?
Like
to
3 hours. Like I want to watch one show or not the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Like last Friday, like I forgot SmackDown was even on.
Same. I forgot it existed. Like everybody was CM Punk, and I was like, let's go see what happens. CM Punk comes out, I lose my mind. Yeah. So I mean,
now, Brandon, I want to mention something that CM Punk said during his promo that got me kind of emotional, and obviously he was making reference to WWE when he said this.
If at all through my journey, any of my personal choices or decisions related to my life made you feel disappointed or let down, let me just say, I understand. If you all try to understand that I was never going to get healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally, staying in the same place that got me sick in the first place.
Man, right in the feels.
What a promo. I mean, the promo king. I mean, he let him go out, give him a mic, and he can give out candy bars, and everybody's going to go home happy. That's exactly
it was real. Like, that's the thing. Like, the best promos have to have that reality to it. I believed it. I believed every word that he said. And
I mean, it was definitely believable because, like you said, it was real. I don't think that any of that was scripted. I mean, he was all over the place a little bit. It definitely was not on par with a WWE scripted promo. So you could tell immediately this guy's thinking of this as it comes. He did say that it was probably one of the greatest moments of his entire career recently. So I believe it, man. I mean, I don't remember the last time I got goosebumps like that. The last time I got goosebumps like that of seeing CM Punk come back, I have to say would be, correct me on the year, I think it was the 2010 Royal Rumble when Cena came back. Mm-hmm. That's an awesome moment for sure. At least most recently. That was probably the last time that I was like, wow, like that was dope. Like that was really, really cool to see. I mean, there's a few others in between there. Of course, when we first saw Goldberg come back, when we first saw Brock come back, those are all fun too. But CM Punk, we've said it before and we've contemplated it. And I think now that it's kind of one of our last shows before we take a little bit of a break is the wrestling world has just been flipped on its axis, and we're not talking about that enough. We're not talking about the impact that CM Punk brings. There are fans and friends of mine who are now watching a product they've never watched before simply for the fact that they gave up on WWE 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and now they see CM Punk and they said, hold on, I want to see what's going on over here. Now they're getting introduced to Darby Allin, MJF, Kenny Omega, who still to me is the greatest wrestler on planet Earth, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, the talent pool is insane over there. And Daniel Bryan will be there. I have no doubts about that. And if
you think they wouldn't tease like that?
If Adam Cole goes though, Dan, I mean, how many dominoes have to fall besides Bray Wyatt before we all say, bye, WWE, like, you have nothing for me?
Okay, this is an old guy story here. It makes me think about WCW, when WCW was really hot. I think, like when Hulk Hogan went over there, I think that was a game changer. I think this is close. This is close. Maybe even surpassing when Hulk Hogan went to WCW. Because I remember this shows how long ago this was. I remember running into a guy in a video store. I must have been wearing a wrestling shirt. Maybe I had I was trying to rent a wrestling VHS or something.
Maybe you were just dressed up as Hulk Hogan.
Maybe. But I remember the guy was like, man, like, I love WCW. Like, all the guys are there. Man, we got all the cool guys are there. And I think that's kind of what's turning into with AEW. Like, hey, man, oh, God, like you can be running into someone in the bar. You talk about how you watch a wrestling show. They could be like, oh, or how you host a wrestling show. They might be like, I haven't watched wrestling in years. You'd be like, hey, man, they got CM Punk over at AEW. They got Daniel Bryan. They got Bray Wyatt. Be like, oh, hey, man, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I don't know why WWE's letting their competition
here's
have
the
so
difference.
much momentum.
Here's the difference. Hogan, Nash, Hall, X-Pac, give me some more names that were at WWE. Lex Luger, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior. Okay, 4 of those names in Warrior, Flair, Hogan, and Macho Man way past their prime by the time they were at WCW.
That's true.
Okay,
so it was kind of like the
it was the
plan B.
It was the plan B. It worked. We have not seen talent this big and this much and this quickly jump ship ever. Like there is
like viable talent that can go every day.
Not
Not Ric Flair going to NWA. God bless him, but
yeah,
I mean, what the hell is he gonna do over there?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing like the LWO guys and Juventud Guerrero. God bless his soul. But I'm saying this. We're not talking. We're talking about Aleister Black. We're talking about possibly Bray Wyatt, Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley leaving that pay-per-view Double or Nothing is still, I said it then, I'll say it again. This was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. That is the best pay-per-view I've ever seen in my entire life. That first pay-per-view ever AEW did, Double or Nothing. I absolutely enjoyed every minute of it. Jon Moxley leaving was the outsider's moment. I mean, when you have a member of the greatest faction since DX leave to the new promotion, that was huge. Chris Jericho being there was huge. This is a legitimate competition. This is not WCW. I firmly believe, and maybe I sound like a mark, maybe I sound like an idiot, maybe I sound very ignorant as a young person, but AEW, on the traction they're going, it seems as if WWE is getting prepared to sell. That's what it seems like.
That's what rumor and innuendo is. And I will say this: I think you pointed out the biggest flaw in my analogy or my comparison of the situation now versus the Attitude Era in WCW. Back then, yes, you're correct. When WCW was stealing talent from WWE, they were stealing talent that WWE didn't want anymore or that didn't have many plans for. Whereas older people, nothing wrong being older. I mean, older for the time. Macho Man was like 35.
Yeah.
But now
usually 35 is usually sometimes your resting prime. But for them,
back then it
just
was like
not. Yeah.
Put the pasture. But now the difference now is that so back then there could be a kind of perception, even though the cool guys are here, the guys I grew up with, but it still seemed like the older guys are here, like the guys that the other company didn't want anymore. But now it's like when you watch AEW, you don't feel sorry for these guys and go, man, that sucks that they had to come to AEW because WWE want them. Instead, you think like, why the hell did WWE get rid of this guy?
Yeah, it just
when
doesn't
they had
make
Rusev,
sense.
and now we have him here as Miro, or like all. It just I don't get it. I guess WWE, I don't know, but why would they devalue themselves to sell?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't understand the plans in place because the thing is, usually if you're a business person, Dan, you give away assets to then gain assets, right? You're saying, hey, I don't need Bray Wyatt. I don't need Daniel Bryan. I don't need Rusev. I don't need Aleister Black. I don't need X, Y, and Z, you name it. Because I'm going to promote a Adam Cole. I'm going to promote, a Tommaso Ciampa, again, you name the NXT superstar besides Karrion Kross getting beat by Jeff Hardy. So that's what I'm saying is usually you're giving assets to then gain assets. Karrion Kross is finished. It's done.
I feel so sorry for him.
I don't believe there's a comeback for him.
It sucks. Do you remember when he debuted?
That was the coolest debut I've ever seen.
The music
He is finette. He's done. He's finette.
When I saw him on Raw, I felt so sorry for him.
He's wearing a mask that was in that Pulp Fiction scene that we all remember. I mean, the guy
He's got
definitely.
I don't know if it's a tribute to Demolition, but it's like this red.
It looks like
S&M.
Demolition. You're right. It looks like Demolition.
But red.
Yes.
Wasn't it red? This red S&M thing.
Awful. And he's
I felt
losing
sad
to
for him.
Jeff Hardy. I mean, it's just, dude, I'm not. Karrion Kross, all love to you, brother. You're done. It's over. You and Cedric Alexander, and you guys have a fun time on the mid card. You're gonna make great money, no problem. But you're not gonna be around long.
And maybe he's happy with it. Hey, I work for WWE. That's cool.
Sure.
Making decent money. Like I'm not gonna headline WrestleMania, but
yeah,
like, hey.
why not? Why
and
not?
he knows
But
what's the worst thing is to happen? They could fire me. I'll go to another company.
Yeah,
Great.
I mean,
or do indie bookings.
Yeah, and that's
I'll be fine.
I don't think Karrion Kross has the name to jump to AEW. I think he has the gimmick. I just don't know if he has the name to make that jump. But
it's so disappointing too because when he first debuted, I thought, man, this guy's a star. They are setting this guy up to be a star, like probably one of the top entrances ever. It's just like it's so disappointing. Like, what are you doing? Vince McMahon, what are you doing?
Him and Damian Priest both had awesome entrances.
They do. And by the way, congratulations to Damian Priest.
Yes, congrats. Friend of the show. Our last
he was on our
latest
show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
last guest for a while at least, and he won his championship. So
the streak is alive.
We had a streak for a while where everybody from AEW and WWE that was on our show went on to lose at their pay-per-view.
That's not true. That's not true. You keep saying this, yet every time I think about it, they're all. Everybody that we've interviewed, after we interview them, if you do a 6-month checkup, they're doing better than what they were.
Okay, now, but back. Okay, last year was a tough year.
We interviewed
Sammy
Molly
Guevara
Holly,
lost
she
his
became
match.
a Hall of Famer.
Sammy Guevara lost his match against Jeff Hardy. No,
Jeff
was it
Hardy.
Jeff Hardy.
Okay, too much.
No, not Jeff
wrestling
Hardy.
now.
See, okay, I had too much.
He's
beer.
losing it. He's losing.
I don't know. Sammy Guevara. We had Sammy
Another
Guevara.
Hardy, yes.
Sammy Guevara on the show.
Almost
he lost
killed that
to
Hardy,
Matt Hardy.
by the way.
Yeah,
But okay.
And Thunder Rosa, she lost her first pay-per-view after she was on our show.
That was because of Dan Cialana. That's not because of Brett
Yeah.
Anderson.
Who else lost because they were on our show? From
You know what? I just thought about it. Those
Matt
two.
Hardy. Yep.
Wow. So those three. You named 3 people that you
Yeah.
interviewed without me. I think that's a Dan Cialana curse. That's 100%.
You know, you're right. Actually,
that's a
WWE
Dan
too.
Cialana
The ones I interviewed
curse.
solo, because when I interviewed Drew McIntyre solo the first time he was on, he
Lost at WrestleMania.
Braun Strowman lost on TV after I interviewed him.
Dan Cialana has a streak of losing.
Yeah. But then once you start doing interviews with me, you know, got Bianca Belair. She wins WrestleMania.
MVP is the leader of the Hurt Business. You have
Damian Priest.
Who else? Molly Holly's a Hall of Famer. Like, it's just
Bobby Lashley. We had him on. And then a few months later, he wins a championship. So
I'm telling you, brother,
maybe it was me.
There's something in the water over here, but whatever.
Most of the problems are usually my problems.
Yeah, whatever Dan's drinking, I don't want no part of. But unless it's alcohol. But
it's Hop Dottie.
Hop Daddy.
Hop Dottie is a burger place.
Hopadilla is what it is.
Hopadilla.
There you go. But so when we talk about moving forward, guys, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, hopefully we have Roman Reigns, we have Brock Lesnar, we have Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch is back, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair. Women's wrestling is at its peak ever, period. Yeah. Wrestling is at one of its peaks. I don't know if ever, but one of its peaks. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. Unfortunately, we're going to take a little bit of a break, but fortunately, we'll still be around. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on any social media. I'll still be doing my fantasy football show through ESPN San Antonio. And again,
San Antonio Sports Star.
San Antonio Sports Star, yeah. And without all the pettiness, great times. I mean, honestly, when we look back, great times and a lot of awesome stuff we were able to do. And I look forward to the WrestleMania. I think we'll make sure to be there some way, somehow.
I'll definitely be there, at least as a fan.
Yeah, and Down for the Count will be back, at least for that show, just to do a one-off, or maybe we're back full-time by then. Who knows? But we absolutely want to take this time to say thank you so much to the fans of this show, to the fans of Dan and I. When Dan and I first met, I was making absolute garbage. We were making absolute garbage money in radio. Dan was a board op. I was a new talent that was barely getting used. And I just one day, we talked after I interviewed the British Bulldog's son 2.5 years ago. And Dan helped me with that interview, set it up as far as the audio goes. And then after that, we talked wrestling for about an hour. And I asked Dan if he wanted to jump on and Down for the Count. Go listen to those awkward solo ones before. Those were awful. But I
never actually listened to those, actually. I don't think I did.
So fake friend. But Dan Ciolana definitely jumped on and brought a dangerous element to Down for the Counts. And
that's for sure. In good ways and bad ways. And
good
Brandon,
ways and bad.
I actually, what got me to do this show or want to do this show with you initially was I had just met you at the radio station in 2019. I think it was summer 2019. And I saw that you had posted on social media, hey, I got to interview Charlotte Flair. And I went to listen to it because I'm like, that's cool. He got to interview Charlotte Flair over the phone. And then I saw Charlotte Flair was in the studio that I work in, and I didn't know it. And I didn't go to work that day, and I could have met Charlotte Flair. And I told myself, this is never going to happen again.
That's what happened.
I want to meet wrestlers, and that's always something behind the scenes I've always told you. Like, no matter what business wise, like I have fun. I've got to meet wrestlers and talk to people. I mean, it's just amazing. Like, it just sometimes, after a while we get kind of jaded. We don't get really starstruck, but sometimes we do. Like, for instance, I remember we were just a couple weeks before WrestleMania, and we're on the Zoom call, and then all of a sudden Bianca Belair comes on the Zoom call. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Bianca Belair is on my computer right here where I'm talking to her. We got to talk to Drew McIntyre. I got to talk to Jimmy Hart's.
Yep.
That grew up with Jimmy Hart. There's so many people. Oh my God, we can't.
Yeah, I mean, we
can't
talked
thank
to
everybody.
Vicky Guerrero, Sammy Guevara, the daughter of Eddie Guerrero. I mean, we
Chal Guerrero.
Yeah, Chal Guerrero. We talked to Thunder Rosa, who's been a huge supporter of our show and of us.
Thank you.
And that is, I mean, it goes without saying, but from the bottom of our heart, thank you to Thunder Rosa. She's a huge part of this show and a huge part of San Antonio wrestling in general. And to the wrestlers that were on our show, we appreciate you. To the fans who listened, whether it was every week, whether it was off and on, whether it was just one time,
or just tonight to see if I talk shit about you.
Yeah, just tonight. Thank you for everything. I mean, not to be sappy, not to get sad, but
I'll get sappy and I'll get sad.
This was definitely my little baby, and it turned to Dan's little baby, and it became something that was ours, something tangible that we could do, that we could say we absolutely did the first wrestling show ever on airwaves in San Antonio, especially as big as San Antonio Sports Star and ESPN San Antonio. And I think it's unfortunate the way things have ended. And again, I don't want to get into that, but it's unfortunate the way things ended, but we're very grateful for the years that we did get it, because not many people get the opportunity to talk wrestling for fun, and to meet wrestlers and to, you know, get paid to do this.
And Brandon, I said I wouldn't name any names, but I do want to think I don't want to go away without thanking two people specifically. One of them is Rob Thompson, the other one's James Pledger. And both of those, there would have not been a Down for the Counts at ESPN San Antonio if it were not for the support of both of those guys. We had so much fun. When Rob gave us a show a couple years ago or whatever it was, he just basically said, have fun. Have fun.
Yeah, he gave us no rules, and we broke. You give us rules, and we'll break them, and that's what we did.
It was. He was a big supporter, you know, and I you know, kind of like what CM Punk said. I kind of want to. I want to apologize to you, Brandon, and to anybody who just in the way part of the blame goes on me personally. I won't get into it, but in terms of the way I handled things behind the scenes, and it made things uncomfortable. So it wasn't all my fault, but it definitely part of it was my fault. I could have done things professionally a lot different, and I apologize for that. I wish things behind the scenes were not the way they were, but it did. You know, this was an emotional weekend for me, both in terms of the highs, in terms of the wrestling product, and the lows, in terms of the way that our business relationship with the radio station ended. And I think it's going to be good for me because it made me really pause and realize that I wasn't prioritizing things that I should be,
right,
both professionally, emotionally, physically. So I do want to take some time away. I think about Jeff Hardy when he says, it's not goodbye for now. It's not goodbye forever. It's goodbye for now. And I got to go away now. Ironically, it was CM Punk waving bye to him when he said that. So I don't know what the future is going to be for Down for the Counts, or even for me, or if I'm even going to do any media or wrestling media or whatever. I definitely got to take some time to just reflect. I told my wife recently, I said, if I continue the way I'm going now, I'm going to die. You know, maybe I was being dramatic, Dan, maybe. But I definitely want to thank you, Brandon, for bringing me on for Down for the Count. It was a blast. It was fun. We always just it was always a dance. One thing that I loved about our relationship here on the show is that we never got jealous in terms of hey, you talked more to the guests than I wanted to ask him that question, or how come you introduced him, or how come you introduced it? We never got that damn thing. It was just a dance. We just went for it.
Yep.
And sometimes when you're dancing, one person, leads and another person will lead. I don't know. It was just a flow. There was never that ego in terms of hey, do what I say, or it was just fun. And I hope it's not the last of our wrestling media. Definitely not the last of our friendship. But I don't want to say goodbye forever, but definitely goodbye for now to Down for the Counts. I will say, and
absolutely.
I enjoyed it.
And I think to end on a good note, you mentioned a dance, and I think with that, every song has to come to an end.
Uh-oh. You froze now. Are you going to dance for me? Okay. This is awkward, Brandon, because I don't know if we're still on here. Brandon froze. Brandon, I don't know if you can hear me. You talked about how you were going to dance. Oh, my God. Okay. Well, we'll see what's going on with Brandon's... What an appropriate way to end Down for the Count, with Brandon freezing on camera. Brandon famously had terrible internet. Brandon, I don't know if you're on. I don't know. I can't hear you. But we were about to wrap up anyway. So thank you so much for everybody who has ever supported Down for the Counts. And Brandon lost power. He just texted me. What an appropriate way. What an appropriate way to end Down for the Count. And at least for now, that's the bottom line, because Down for the Count said so.